All right, so welcome to the podcast, Sachin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
For everyone listening in, Sachin is the director of enterprise architecture at Vimeo, the company that does video, and there's a bunch more that we would love to learn about Vimeo, Sachin. But you've also previously worked at really great, logos like E&Y, Verizon, companies like Oracle, and you have very extensive, experience working in, as a transformation expert, as you say on your LinkedIn. It seems like you worked on modernization, integration, automation, a bunch of other things. So I'm really excited to get into all of this and talk to you about it. So thank you so much once again for taking the time to come on the podcast.
Thanks. It's a pleasure, and I'm super excited to share my journey here.
Tell us a little bit more about what you currently do at Vimeo and a little bit more about Vimeo.
Yep, sure. As an enterprise architecture, I purview my what's in my role in Purview is I oversee integration automation of business applications, right from marketing, sales, HR, finance, and the data warehouse. So the integration of all these different business applications, optimizing the business processes and from code to cash, and integration of all the systems. Apart from within these business applications, all these systems do connect to it core platform of Vimeo itself to deliver the customer service and customer success operations. So my goal here is to see how I can achieve the operational excellence with the focus on customer experience and an employee experience as well.
So I have heard about Vimeo because a bunch of times I've seen videos with links from Vimeo. And I know there's this whole story about YouTube versus Vimeo that always keeps brewing. But tell us a little bit about what Vimeo does, like for people who don't know about Vimeo.
Yeah, definitely. So Vimeo caters to content creators and filmmakers. They can create their own videos and upload to this. It's a advertisement free and subscription based platform. We are second largest after the YouTube, as you said. And we are into three different businesses: B2B, which is enterprise. We also have products which are used by these different enterprises. B2C is where, as I mentioned, personalized videos that can be uploaded and recorded for content creators as well as for the filmmakers, the short videos. And the
Right.
third product is OTT, over the top, where we host something like not Netflix and Prime, but something similar. We
Similar. Okay.
host for other customers.
Yeah, so I did not know that Vimeo was like ad free and was subscription based. Because I've usually been a consumer of somebody sends me a link of Vimeo on Vimeo about something that they have done, and I get to watch it. And I love the whole idea of catering to B2B as well, because I've seen a bunch of training videos from specific companies. So before, I know you've been at Vimeo for about a year or plus, right? For somebody who was coming into the company, as an outsider coming into, what surprised you about Vimeo?
When I started at the Vimeo, the most surprising thing was it's 100% cloud-based company.
Hmm.
We are already on the cloud. Everything is on the cloud for Vimeo, which is amazing to see, because when I worked in EY and other consulting firms, there were many clients who were still migrating to cloud.
Right.
Versus Vimeo was already on the cloud, which was kind of I was I was surprised for that. But also on the other side, the core platform of Vimeo is still hosted on uses the monolithic architecture,
Interesting.
and even though it's on the cloud, but we still have this old school style setup, and that was I was like, okay, this gives a great opportunity to modernize and transform the platform also. So I thought it's a unique setup where I have on one side it's 100% cloud, everything is SaaS based, and the other side it still has an old school.
Yeah, yeah. And what's interesting is I'm just going to ask this question, right? I'm pretty sure you're not running on GCP, right? Is either Azure or AWS. So which one is it?
You would be surprised. Actually, it's a mix of both,
Oh, is it? Yeah.
AWS and GCP mostly.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, it's a mix. So.
All right. So I always thought, like, for example, here's this whole joke, right? Like, AWS doesn't host anything on Google, or like Microsoft doesn't host anything on Google the same way because it's competing products, right? So I thought Vimeo would also be like not hosting on GCP, but that's good to know. Yeah, it's
Yeah, no,
very cool.
we have it on the all. I think it's a mix of both, right?
Right.
Lately, I have wherever I have worked, it has a combination of multiple. So as they say, you shouldn't be putting all eggs in one basket.
From an architecture point of view, you would absolutely love the fact that a company is open to multiple clouds, right? And not stuck to one particular cloud. I feel.
Mhm.
So that's really cool. So I do want to get into some of the things you mentioned around your architecture and the transformation initiatives that you're working on, like taking the company from this monolithic architecture, even though they're on the cloud, to more. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about what are like some of the key technology initiatives that you have and challenges that you are currently focused on at the company.
Yeah, so Vimeo, as I said, we have a lot of SaaS-based applications, right? Salesforce for marketing and sales initiatives. Then we also have billing aspect of it. Since I right now more focused on the business side of it, how the business applications work. So billing has Zora. We use Zora billing, Zora revenue, which does, since we are a subscription based company, we get all this billing and subscriptions happens through Salesforce to Zora billing. And our initiatives that we are having right now is focused on how do we simplify the business processes,
Right.
and how do we give them more operation excellence by giving optimizing the business processes, reduce the uh, code to cash time, end to end customer journey. How do we reduce the bottlenecks for the customer? It's all
Right.
about customer focused, and what how to give the best. So the initiatives are all around simplifying, optimizing, automating, integrating, and modernizing. So
Very
these
cool.
are the five themes that our focus is, especially in my role right now, is how, and obviously we can talk more about Gen AI, AI and
Oh
ML,
yeah.
these technologies, that how can we leverage these disruptive technologies to achieve our these initiatives, the goals that we have set for ourselves.
Right. Oh, that'll be great to get into. So you mentioned code to cash. I mean, can you expand for the audience who's listening to it? What does code to cash really mean for the business, like at Vimeo?
Yeah. So code to cash is pretty much when this is more for B2B, for that's business to business. When we sell a business to another business, we first start with putting the code together. Obviously, before that, we have the lead generation, get the leads and all. And once we have the code, we send the code to customer. And once the customer signs up, we create that opportunity, and we then it has to be sign the contract with the customer and then provision the product to the customer
Right.
through our provisioning. And once the customer's provisioning is done, then we would invoice the customer. That invoicing happens, and then the revenue is generated. We need to recognize that revenue that is generated from this business, and eventually we get the cash out from
Right.
that transaction. So it's basically a transaction for a customer from end to end, right? From we connected, we gave the code, to we generate the cash from that transaction.
Got it. Yeah. So, I mean, in your existing system, when you were getting into the company, what did you see this code to cash as a place where you felt like, okay, this needs modernizing. The way it's run right now is not really efficient and things like that?
Yeah, so when I was interviewed for this role, I think that's where we had this lot of discussions with various stakeholders as to what are the challenges we have in this whole process. Where does it starts? And there are many areas or opportunities that can be optimized. And that's where my role was to come, and that's where I was very excited about, as to okay, there are tools, there are systems, there are many tools. Actually, we have like hundreds of tools how do we best use them? Any, in not just this company but anywhere, when we have these kind of technologies and this kind of system, there's always, you will have silos and you will have redundant systems. And that's the part of my role, is to identify these silos where the tasks are performed within one area within the team. Like sales team would perform their task, marketing would do theirs, similarly finance has their own. So there are different silos, and that integration, the cross functional coordination, is very important. And also,
Right.
when I came in, my first thing I did is I spoke to all different stakeholders from each of this department or if this function, and then put together a enterprise architecture, base architecture, what we call, right? And
Right.
then my vision is, now that we know what the base architecture looks like, what's the landscape of this whole infrastructure and architecture, which includes your business applications, application portfolio, databases, various systems,
Right.
the ecosystem. And I put together a diagram explaining how this whole system today works, how the data flow from each system to other system, where are the gaps, and how it can be optimized.
Yeah.
And that's where I started. And
That's very cool, because the reason why I say that, Sachin, is, I mean, it's an understatement, but I have a joke when I talk to architects. Like, I myself associate myself as an architect, somebody who works on solutions, right? And it's an art, obviously, but to put together an entire process and then to identify that and put it on a paper and show a diagram is actually also artwork. So we are basically art, not just architects but also artists who are able to take complex business problems and translate that into simple block diagrams that shows a flow and an entire end-to-end process. And what I've noticed from what you were saying is that, also from my experience, is that there are a lot of times when we go after something that looks really exciting. We feel like, oh, this is the right technology, let's take the right database, put it together with this application and move data across. But we forget the overall impact on end to end, because sometimes you have to also consider what the experience is, or
right.
on the customer side, right? uh, who is going through this end to end transaction, and how it feels like. So tell me a little bit about, and you and I kind of were talking about it before we got in. How do you envision optimizing this business process from an end to end point of view, and maybe for code to cash, right, using the technologies that you already have? So
There are a lot of opportunities to automate, simplify these business processes, and we started with three different phases. Let's start with the quick win, where we can use existing technologies and enable quickly, with a little or no code, implement something that quickly shows the value, how it can be automated using the available tools that we have, because we have to take into the consideration about the resource availability, the budget, and other priorities, other projects that are
right.
in process right now. So with that, I started with this short term phase. I call it like short term, mid term, and long term phases, right?
Right.
So with the short term, we looked at what can be immediately implemented, which is less complex but high value, high business value. So identified that and we started implementing that. One of the very simple thing, there is a validation process that goes where you just need to go and, in the Salesforce, once we get the customer signed up, we have to provide provision them the software, whether it's whatever is customer has signed up, does that customer has access. It's, let's say that
Mm.
was manual, we would quickly automate that. That was a simple, I'm just giving a simple one
Yeah,
example.
yeah, yeah.
So, and that's how, once that is done, in first 6 months, that's what our initiative was, where we looked at it, we said, okay, existing tools we will use, whatever the available tools are there, we enable certain things. Then we looked at it, okay, 1 year from now, what else can be done beyond 6 months? And
Mm.
we identified few tools where we needed to enable some additional features of existing tools. We may have to buy some additional licenses to enable those features, like AI, for example. We want to enable, the tools are there, but AI was not licensed for us.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
let's go ahead and license the AI and enable the automation for that piece. In the long term, where we would say, okay, what other tools are available in the market, which we can use, like RPA, Gen AI, these
Hmm.
kind of tools we can use and automate it completely end to end. Customer
Right.
support, we can give a chatbot where customer can just speak and ticket would be raised and looked into and solved automatically online for some to some extent. So those kind of things on a long term basis. So that's how we
Yeah.
do it.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's good to know the way you kind of think about solving an end-to-end process. So this has led to in this podcast, and I'm trying to make the podcast a little bit more fun. I'm going to ask you the first. I'm going to ask you three, obviously, but this is one of the first. Would you rather questions? Okay. So the first question is, Sachin, would you rather have a video hosting platform? And you don't have to answer for Vimeo, but you can generally answer. Would you rather have a video hosting platform with a flawless user experience but limited scalability, or a slightly less okay customer user experience with exceptional scalability? What would you do?
That's an excellent question. Well, I definitely won't be speaking for Vimeo here, and
Yeah.
it's my personal take on this would be I always prefer the customer experience as my top priority.
Hmm.
If customer is not happy, even if you scale it, nobody's going to use it. Customer for you to have the customer base and use it, you need to have the platform that gives the best customer experience,
Right.
and unless you have the customer experience, even if you scale, you have to have the customers to scale it. So
Right.
in
Right.
my view, customer experience comes first. I would first focus on getting the customer experience, best customer experience, and then okay, once I have that customer base with that customer experience, then I would look at how can I scale it now.
Great. I mean, that's a great answer, by the way. I mean, I know it's like a chicken and egg kind of problem, you
Exactly.
know, but I wanted to position it and see how you answer it. But great, great response. Now, when we talk about scalability, obviously, we were talking about when we started the idea that you guys are already on the cloud, and that's like a fantastic thing to be, right? Because about it 15, 20 years ago, we were not on the cloud, but as soon as the cloud came in, we got the ability to scale application, build applications quickly, prototype it, and then eventually build whatever we wanted to on the cloud platform. So it really took away a lot of our burden and enabled us to be elastic and have the scale. So what's been your experience like in the last last decade or so? What are some of the top technologies that you have worked on that have excited you in the cloud, in the cloud obviously, and around scale and databases?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. Actually, I've been again very fortunate to work on diverse technologies, I would say.
Right.
Even though I started with client server technology, like back in the days in Siebel enterprise application, where
Oh
I
yeah.
was really focused on building the infrastructure, enabling this applications, and installing the servers. So cloud has then I have transitioned into cloud by
Mm,
scaling or automatically enabling in 5 minutes you have server available, which used to take like 4 hours, right? So I started with Siebel, as I said. I worked on SaaS applications like Salesforce. Then I worked primarily on Azure. Initially, when the cloud started, I did on AWS for a short period of time. More between two, I worked more on Azure than on AWS.
mm.
Then I worked extensively on Oracle Cloud. In fact, I was with Oracle when the Oracle Cloud was being built. So
Put together, yeah.
yeah, when it was launched, so that was a great experience. In that also, I think Oracle took a phased approach, as I see it, right?
Right.
Oracle has something called managed services, where they took the customer, they hosted the in the cloud and in the private cloud first,
Mm.
and then they made it available their applications in the private cloud, and then they transitioned into public cloud. So from they didn't go directly from in on-prem to cloud, public cloud. So there was like on-prem to private cloud of the customer, and then public cloud. And i
Right.
i was fortunate to work on both. I migrated customers from on-prem to private first, and then I built this to public also, and then migrated to public.
Since you've done a bunch of these migrations, and the funny thing is, I mean, Sachin, you already know this. It's like people are still not on the cloud. Like the cloud journey is still going on, and there are people running still on on-prem systems. And like, there's this joke. I remember I used to work for a company called SunGuard Availability Services, and they a customer or a bunch of them decided to like move. either data centers or was trying to move to the cloud. And eventually they moved this data center, and they were also changing offices. And the joke is, they suddenly found an AS400 machine sitting under somebody's desk, and they had no idea what was running on it because it was running for 20 years.
Yes.
And
Um,
so you still have systems that are running on old machines.
Believe me, I have been there. I have in one of my experience in one of my projects, we did had exact same situation where things were running on the physical desktop, which was
Yeah.
sitting in someone's desk, and everybody is like, okay, we need to get out of that sooner or later. So
uh,
I can totally relate it.
yeah, I mean, it's a situation that all everybody goes through, right? And as an enterprise architect, obviously you have to be willing to look at what system is in front of you and help move them to a more modern platform that's automated, well integrated, and is more built for scale and future, right? So my question to you is that you've done a bunch of these, right? Obviously, so what are some of your tactics or your methods to going into first understanding what is the scale of the problem you're looking to solve when you have to modernize somebody?
Any problem, when I look at it, I first look at it, what's the impact of that problem to the business, because ultimately it's a business which drives everything. So how bad of an impact is, and when I say business, within the business, is it the end user who is impacted, is it the customer who is impacted, or is it internal team that is impacted, right? Based on that, if it is impact to the customer, I would look at what's the feedback of the customer, how do I get the voice of the customer, what they are, what are their pain points. So one of the thing I always do it is create a matrix with friction points and opportunities,
Right.
and the available options for these friction points and opportunities, and area where it's failing. Is it failing at the entrance, is it failing at the execution, or is it failing at the support? So
Hmm.
where exactly the failures are, it could be that the problem. And anytime I don't like to call it as a problem, because I always see that it's an opportunity.
Hmm.
Anything that, when you look at it something as an opportunity, your mind works differently
Fair.
when you
Yeah.
think about it as a problem. So I'm a very positive person, so I always look at, okay, there is an opportunity to make it better. So
Oh yeah,
that's how
yeah.
I see it. And I look into these three different sections, and once I get, then I try to build the matrix and score them based on who is high impact, low impact, high value, those sectors, and then I'll decide where to attack.
Right. I mean, that's a great perspective. So let's take an example for us and for listeners to understand. Say you have to, like, you have to modernize some database, right? I mean, and there are a bunch of databases, especially. I mean, a decade ago, we had to deal with like four. If we pick between two or three databases, now
Mhm.
you have 20, at least 20 great databases. They solve pretty a similar problem set, but again, handle them in a different way. So in that matrix kind of method, how do you go about picking what kind of database to choose for what kind of problem?
Yeah, I mean, the database is a wider thing, right? Let's
Mm,
say, if even if I take a database example, we I have been working into Oracle for a very long time. Out of
right.
20 years, I would say more than 15 years I worked for Oracle. And every time if I had to design something, most of the time I would focus, I was a bit biased because I had the experience in Oracle, so I would first thing would come
Your
to my
default
mind.
is Oracle, yeah.
Default is Oracle. I think the
Yeah.
only place where I that was not the case was in EY, where
Mm,
I was working right before Vimeo, where we had a customer where we had to opportunity to design, and we had to choose, do we want to go with Oracle or do we want to go with Azure database in the cloud with data lake. Now in that case, database is one aspect, but okay, what is the entry points for that database? What are you
mm,
going to do with database? Are you more transaction driven business, transaction applications? Are you more analytics based, right? Business.
application,
What
yeah.
is your business? What is your business? Is it transaction or analytics?
Right.
And also, is it more of a report driven? Are you using this database more for report driven? Are you using this database more for calculation driven? So
Right.
these are the factors you have to look at when you decide what database you want. or what database you want to implement. And apart from this, number of users, how many users are going to use, not just the number of users, but how much concurrent users will be using your database,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
where are they located globally. You have to look at the geography of the users also, because if they are central database, which will be accessed all over the globe, then some other database would be better rather than having. And so these are the few things come to my mind immediately as to how it can be done. In the world today, there is a DevOps, there is a DevSecOps, right? There is a FinOps, BizOps. There are many operations and combination of these two. But
Right.
what I see is missing today is BizTechOps, is what I'm calling, where you have the business, you have the technology and operations. How
Hmm.
do you align these three together and build the infrastructure or build
Yeah.
the business? So
Using what you just said about BizTech ops, and you were initially mentioning that one of the things that surprised you was like obviously Vimeo is already on cloud, but it's very monolithic. Now this is not an old thought now that monolithic is bad or anything. I don't know if you know about this. Amazon Prime was completely serverless, and then they went back to a monolithic architecture because
I'm,
that's what makes sense. The economics don't make sense. The architecture might be way too much. So tell me a little bit about this BizTech idea along with your approach to helping the company move from a monolithic architecture, or why that is to something else.
I think the way I see it is the core platform Vimeo has is on monolithic. That's
Hmm.
their bread and butter, right? That's our bread and butter. And it is on monolithic, but it's serving the purpose today. It's giving the business today. Unless and until we see a value that, oh, if we change completely to microservices and different architecture, it's going to reduce our cost, it's going to increase our revenue, it's going to optimize our processes,
Right.
then yes, but we have to first look at this. Does it really do that?
Hmm.
In my view, at this point, at least I'm here only for 9-10 months and I haven't even got enough chance to see it from that aspect. But from what I
Right.
have seen, you may not necessarily completely redesign your monolithic architecture. However, you can find a midway where
Hmm.
you can still build the APIs, uh, right? On your monolithic, there's always option to create sub processes and create APIs around those sub processes within the monolithic, and then consume those APIs and modernize your system
Right.
for the fast using AI or using the low code no code. You can always automate these things by consuming those APIs, and that's how I see
Because you mentioned APIs, it's also a really great segue for my next would you rather question. Okay, and
it.
and I know this is going to be a little bit difficult because for me also this is like a question I don't know where to go really. So let me ask you, uh, if you had to choose, or would you rather have to pick something, would you prioritize using integrated AI powered solutions or like generative AI to some of your stack and some of the work that you're doing, or would you invest your time towards enhancing the say the API infrastructure or using APIs to smooth it out the overall experience for the end-to-end business?
That's another good question and tricky questions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, see, you even for you to use Gen AI or anything, if your underlying infrastructure or the tech stack is not compatible with that Gen AI,
Hmm.
um, then having directly jumping on that would be difficult.
Yeah.
And but again, that being said, if everything is data driven, which sometimes is the case, where you have already established everything that you get is in your Snowflake. Just for the sake of this discussion, let's say we have everything, even if you have your front end e-commerce platform, but everything is sitting in your, even if it is sitting in your MySQL, but ultimately you are syncing up in the Snowflake, and
Right.
you have made everything available as a data. And practically how much it's feasible, maybe it is, maybe it is not, that is something to be explored, but that's how I will look at it.
Right.
Okay, then I would say let's look at, okay, if it's available as a data, then AI is a right source to do it.
Hmm.
Because to do anything with AI and LLM, you need to know the patterns, you need to
Yeah.
know the data, you need the data. That's the heart of it. And if you have that, then I would go with AI.
Hmm.
However, that is not the case most of the time. And
Yeah,
that's what I will say. API is better approach because it's faster, sooner, quicker. You can do it first.
right,
Get
right.
the API. Once APIs are in place, AI you can use it for API. Through API also you can do it. So
Right, yeah. And it's something that you made a great point, but this one thing that I've realized is APIs don't get as much credit as they should,
right.
because sometimes a growth of products is associated with how many people are using it in different ways, right? I mean, obviously, if you look at like Gen AI, right? I know a bunch of us might be using, say, ChatGPT or Claude or a Gemini, and we're
Mhm.
using it on static,
It is.
experiences. But there is an API capability that allows us to build rack systems, and the adoption of those APIs into our ecosystem enables the growth of product in a B2B kind of fashion, right? So
That's a great point you made it. I think API empowers and enables you to achieve great automation and great the simplification and modernization, optimization, all that I talk about.
yeah,
Everything can be achieved through API. So it has a great power, which is underestimated right now. So
exactly.
definitely API is something is going to be there for a very long time, even with the Gen AI or
How do you see these technologies getting used, especially with the emergence of Gen AI, for the automation and simplification of a complex business process, from where you look at everything right now?
I think there is a great opportunity and there's a great potential this technology has, Gen AI has. I think we are just scratching the surface right now for AI. It's just the
Mm,
beginning. And especially in the automation world, if you look at it, if we already use a lot of chat bots and all, but the AI would enable you to go beyond the bots, and that's how I see it. Right, once the customer calls you to for some support, and if AI enabled support is available,
mm,
that AI can go and look into the patterns that, okay, for this particular issue what was done earlier.
right.
And at this point, not only that they can identify it, they can solve and apply the solution through AI. And that's where
Mm,
your APIs, if readily available, it would just look into the data to see the pattern and see what solution was there,
yeah.
and using API it would apply that solution. That's how I see it, and it will be the future. And even for this end-to-end journey, I see there are a lot of Gemini of Google is coming up, Vertex AI is there, and there are many other AI solutions that are in coming in the market, which gonna do exactly these kind of automations. And Workado is another one I was exploring, which has great tool. I think pretty much every SaaS, even Salesforce, they have their own AI agents or AI
Oh yeah.
enabled capabilities, which will do this. So AI has a great future. I think automation 2 years from now, if we are talking like this, you I would be saying probably, oh, all that I was talking about code to cash is managed by AI now.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. I mean, I have a feeling that in a decade's time, a lot of things will be automated because AI is going to be way more smarter, right? I mean, as an enterprise architect, you will love having AI with you because it
Yeah.
just simplifies
I
automation.
I think only one thing I would definitely call out is it is not going to take away the jobs or reduce the
Oh
jobs, or
yeah,
right. It's a augmentation to what you have. That repetitive tasks, that mundane tasks, those tasks will be managed by this AI. So
right.
there is certain things. Intuition is not something AI will do it. So
100%. No, I also have a similar thought. Like, I mean, I'm involved in a bunch of AI communities, and the way I like to say it, it's more like all jobs will be AI assisted jobs. In
correct.
the sense, like we'll have an AI, like this gives AI gives you an opportunity to have your own personal assistant.
Mhm.
Like
Exactly.
we all want to pay for a personal assistant, we can't. I mean,
Understood.
we
I think
can't.
you played put it very well, very nicely put it.
This might be me geeking out a bit, but I think AI agents and this agentic workflow is going to be way more powerful. That I feel like people have not even started talking about it, but there are a lot of people in the AI space that are hinting on this. That is also exciting. But anyways, let's switch a little bit from AI to. I know we're on time a little bit. I wanted to ask you. with all of this that's happening in the space, right? Like obviously as an enterprise architect, you have to be aware of what's happening in AI, what's happening with cloud technology, a bunch of things around your business process. How do you personally keep up with what is latest, and how to make sure the best is picked for the right kind of things that you're working on?
Continuous learning is very important. I give the topmost priority to do. I mean, I would say there is not a single day where I did not learn something. Now,
Hmm.
how I learn it, I love reading books. I'm old style in that way. I
Right.
read books. I not only on computer, but I like to read, and I make it a point that at the minimum 15 minutes I have read something
Hmm.
in the book. So at a given time, I will have 2 3 books lying around in my house. So in a month, my target is try to finish 2 3 books, which is one of them will for sure be a technology. So
Hmm.
recently, I finished one book called New Automation Mindset by Vijay Talla, which is Workato's CEO, and that's a
Yeah.
great book for automation. So I
Nice.
definitely make a point to read the book. Second is podcast is a great way to learn. So anytime I'm in the car, I'm listening to podcast. And
Hmm.
the one podcast that I really listen to pretty much every day is I started yours. I listen to your podcast too.
Nice.
By the way,
Thank
they
you.
have great. You have a great podcast too. So I listen to them. I do listen to tech innovations by Peter High.
Hmm.
That's very very. He also brings in a lot of
Yeah,
good
that's a great one. Yeah.
leaders, and I listen to all those leaders because there is a lot I can learn from them.
Oh
Apart
yeah.
from that, I do read the articles. I attend webinars and seminars, and I encourage everyone that there is a lot to learn, and the best way to learn is when you are in the car, listen to this podcast, and when you get a chance, try to read the books.
So I promised you I'm going to ask you three would you rather questions, and
Yes.
you spoke about books, right? And I don't know, for some reason we have this great segue. So the question I wanted to ask you is, would you rather is like, would you rather, Sachin, write a book on enterprise architecture and how to do it right with business, or would you like to help a company migrate from a disastrous on-prem deployment to the cloud?
Wow, that's both has its own values, and it's really difficult question to answer,
Yeah.
right? I mean, um,
Or let's do this. I'll give you a third one. You can do both as well. The third option
that's
is you
what
can
I
do
was
both.
going to. I was going to ask: is there an option where I will bring the customer from disastering on-prem to the cloud and write a book about it?
Yeah, well, that is amazing, and written by Sachin Joshi. There you go. By the way, are you like, for everyone listening? Do you write somewhere actively, or there's a place where people can follow some of the things that you do?
I started recently writing on LinkedIn, so I have written few articles more focused
Right.
on this tech ops. But I plan to continue writing on LinkedIn for now. Articles on my profile on LinkedIn.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much. I mean, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I know we spoke for about 43, 45 minutes, and time just flew by.
Yeah.
Tell me one thing that you're really excited for with respect to the future. I mean, it can be specific to Vimeo, it can be specific to where technology is going.
I think I'm really excited about the technology, specifically Gen AI, LLM, where it's going right now. Because I see a great future and potential with the Gen AI technology, where it's not only at a corporate world this is going to help. I truly believe that if used by putting the right governance and guardrails on the AI, it can
Right.
be used in education system, in healthcare system,
Oh, yeah.
and in the areas to help human. I think ultimately it comes down to how you are helping the people, how you are helping the human kind, right? And I think AI, if done correctly, can use to human at a large extent in a
Yeah.
positive way.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Sachin, to have you here on the podcast. Didn't realize how the time went, flew by really quickly. For everyone listening, if you want to follow Sachin, you can follow him on LinkedIn. It's Sachin Joshi, and he currently works at Vimeo. So when you tag it with Vimeo, you would be able to find him and follow him. But go check out his articles and some really amazing thoughts that he has around biz tech ops, that is business technology operations, and what is the mindset required for that. I really appreciate you taking the time again, Sachin, for coming. But to the followers, feel free to go and follow Sachin.
Thanks,
Yeah.
David. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure is all mine. Thank you.